Welcome back. This is Steph from Cold Blooded Freaks, and today's episode, we are going to show you some of what we think were the coolest animals in the White Plains Reptile Expo in New York. The first animals that we saw that interested me were chameleons. I have a soft spot for chameleons for some reason. They're just kind of neat, slow, little prehistoric little creatures. We were able to see some Jackson chameleons, panther chameleons, as well as a beautiful pied chameleon. The reason why pied veiled chameleons catch my eye is because they are so different from one another. One of the great things about pied gene in most animals that carry the pied gene means that they can have variance in how they look and the amounts of white they have. And this specific animal was very pretty. I love the coloration along its face and its little hands. I thought it was just a very neat little animal there. The next set of animals that caught my attention were the tokay geckos. As years go on, tokay geckos are being, in my opinion, just getting more and more neat. The color variants and everything that are coming out and all the different genetics I just think are so cool, especially this one guy that I saw. We saw this high red tokay gecko, but we also saw this blueberry tokay gecko, and he was just stunning. He stood out to me, his like bright blue saturated colors all over his body. He was just super neat, and he was very active in his little container. He wanted out. I think one of the other reasons why this blueberry tokay guy stuck out to me is because when I think of a tokay gecko, I tend to think of spots of different kind of colors and different saturations of spots, and this guy was just solid blue. But the high red that was next to him was also very pretty. I really liked those spots, how they were sticking out. That's what I envision when I think of a tokay gecko, is those spots, those rich dark spots with the coloration in the background. And I just like both of them were pretty neat. Something super random that we saw that I thought was very funny actually is there was a breeder that was holding a king snake that was latched onto his finger and would not let go. They were trying for a few moments to get this guy to let go, and he just was very persistent about being latched onto him. People were even petting him as the guy was being bit, so it was very interesting to see and to watch as he was trying to get this king snake to let go. The breeder, of course, acting like a pure champ, because we all get bit. If you have snakes, you will eventually get bit, most likely. And this guy was super calm and laughing, and the whole atmosphere was just pure giggles, and it was just very entertaining. Following that experience, we walked upon a whole set of albino pieds. Something that is very interesting for me in albino pieds, and specifically this expo, is when I was very early on into the ball python industry, the White Plains Expo was one of the first reptile expos I ever went to. I remember at a very early on White Plains Expo that there was this albino pied for sale, and it was the only one I've ever seen, and it was $20,000. And I remember thinking, holy moly, no one's going to be able to afford that here, and I hope that these are more available in the future, because it was absolutely stunning. The yellows with the contrasting white was just super neat, and it was different at the time. And now to see a table almost full of albino pieds was kind of interesting, and to see how much the industry changes over the years. You never know what you're going to see one year versus the next, and even 10 years from now, things that are very expensive do eventually go down. Ironically, the next breeder that we came up upon was a breeder that we spoke about in our last episode about lace. This was the founder of the lace gene, and to be able to kind of talk to him and see all the lace projects that he has going on was very neat. And we actually got to see some of the lace animals that we discussed in that episode. So it was kind of a full circle kind of experience. One of the next vendors we walked up on, we found something that we've been looking for, which is a Strophurus ciliaris, or a Spinytail gecko. We have been looking for another female for our pair, and we found one. This table actually had a male and female, a very small male and a very plump, well-started young female. So we took her home with us. And then after that, my eyes caught a very cute spearpoint leaf-tail gecko. And these guys are one of the smallest leaf-tail geckos. I think they're actually the smallest leaf-tail gecko out there. And they're just super neat. The males have this very cool little marbling pattern going on. They're very, very small. And they got this little tiny nubby leaf tail. And I just find them so cute and adorable, and I just wanted to hold it, but I also wanted to take it home, and it was a struggle to leave that guy behind, but I did. The next vendor that we walked up upon was Legacy Herps, and I have been following them for years, and I saw a Confotus dumbara, or otherwise known as a Knuckles mountain pygmy lizard. These guys have piqued my interest for a little bit of time now, ever since I saw a post about them, and have been looking up and researching as much as I possibly can about them. There is a couple breeders that work with them, and Legacy Herps is one of them. And they did have some very young males and very young females available, as well as a beautiful, well-started young male. And as tempting as these guys are to get like right there and then, I knew that I did not necessarily have a setup for them that was appropriate at the very moment. So anytime you go to these expos, you see animals that you absolutely want to have, you want to bring home. But the reality of it is you should prepare before you go to an expo on what you want, what you're thinking about getting, and making sure that you have the proper enclosure or setup for the animal that you might potentially find. Some of the things that I really like about these guys is their rough scales. They're very neat, kind of an abstract pattern that they have on them. It's kind of mossy, kind of bark-like, but it's very unique from one to the other. And they're just very cool, unique little animals. And not to mention, their care is pretty easy. They don't really like high heat. They need more of a cooler environment, not necessarily a cold environment, but a cooler environment. And they don't require a crazy large enclosure to have more than one in and to have a breeding group in. So I really think these guys are cool. And not to mention, they're pretty social. They're fast little guys, but they don't necessarily mind hanging out as long as they get to know you. Now, before we get to the star of this expo, or at least my favorite animal that was in the expo, we have one that we found that is a little bit less gene-packed. This was an Entry Dreamsicle. This female was very pretty and caught my eye. I have a soft spot for Dreamsicle projects because I think that the colorations of them are just eye-catching. And as you heard before, I have a like for albino pies, and these are like almost the better version of an albino pie, and I think that they age super well. And this one was very high pattern and very low white, so it stuck out to me because I thought it was very neat. And with that said, now we move on to the one that I think was the star of the show for me. And that is just adding one extra genetic to what we just talked about, which is adding leopard. This was a Starburst Dreamsicle that was also possible yellow belly. And this animal was very bright, super cool, like pinks and oranges, contrasting against that white. To see one in person, you could see one in pictures and videos 100 times, but seeing one in person is just, it makes you want to produce one so much more, at least for me, because that is a dream project of mine, and we're hopefully going to be working on it soon. So to see one in person was awesome, and I liked talking to the breeder, and it was just a very nice time all around. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. In the comments below, let us know what your favorite animal that we showed you was. And also, do you guys remember what your first reptile expo was and where it was at? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.